going well. And for one couple in Washington, D.C., unfortunately, they met their end last night. Well, about maybe an hour or two ago, a few hours ago, I don't know, not a long time ago. Uh, a young Jewish Israeli couple were in Washington, D.C. at an event at the Jewish Museum in Washington. And they were both embassy staff, Israeli embassy staff. And they were both brutally murdered by some guy, a certain Mr. Rodriguez, allegedly from Chicago, Illinois. Okay. And he apparently shot them point blank or very close range and then sped off on a motorcycle. And he was apprehended sometime later. And while he was being taken into custody, he was shouting, "Free, free Palestine," which just goes to show, first of all, my condolences to the couple and their families, of course. And as they say, my thoughts and prayers, sincerely, thoughts and prayers to the family of each of the loved ones. Apparently, they were a couple, and he had planned to ask her to marry him next week in Jerusalem. And apparently, he purchased an engagement ring and everything. That was never to be. Unfortunately, they were cut down in their youth, sadly, and it's really terrible. Um, Now, of course, well, you can say, well, but so many more people, you know, die every day, and the war, etc. Yeah, they do. It's true, and it's also terrible. Um, and this just goes to show what I've been saying forever, which is that the people that claim to be pro-Palestine are not. Like this Mr. Rodriguez, I forget his first name, whatever it is, the alleged shooter who said "Free, free Palestine" while being arrested, as it's been reported by NBC News. Um, he is not apparently Palestinian, but he apparently seems to chant the same propaganda that the so-called pro-Palestinian movement people shout, which is interesting because there is no way that Palestine, quote unquote, will ever be, quote unquote, free as long as they are ruled by Hamas or other terrorist groups, right? Like this age of tolerating the fact that the Palestinians are ruled by terrorists, this is over. Okay, that's what Israel is fighting in Gaza for right now. That's why Israel fought so hard to get rid of Hezbollah. That's why Israel fought to send a message to Iran after Iran kept using different proxies, to attack Israel, and then itself attacked Israel with a number of ballistic attacks. Like hundreds of missiles. I think in total more than 1,000 missiles and rockets and drones, etc. Iran shot at Israel last year in those two attacks. And then, of course, the Houthis in Yemen, who are an Iranian proxy, right? And people in Syria who, before Assad fell, who were attacking Israel um, with pretty frequent, amounts of rockets. Not every day or anything, but they certainly were launching attacks here and there. And even there were groups in Iraq who were planning attacks and even had launched some things towards Israel. Right? So there's no shortage. And of course, obviously in Judea and Samaria, Israel faces Hamas and other terrorist groups including the armed groups of the Fatah and the PA and all that stuff. And that is to say, all that is to say, look at who's fighting Israel. Literally all of them at this point are irregular, non-rules following terrorist organizations. They're not armies, the proper armies. Even the Iranians, right, didn't use their proper army to attack Israel. They used, if anything, the forces of the IRGC, which is the Iranian, Republican General, whatever it is, Council, is the General, Guard or something like that. It's like they're elite soldiers, if you will, but they're not part of the actual army, right? They're really a separate army that are really just a very well-paid terrorist organization, and that have, terrorist tentacles in multiple places around the world. Obviously, including in Lebanon, where they were, running Hezbollah for so long, and in other places around the world, by the way. Right? So the only people that are really fighting against Israel at this point are terrorists, like on a regular basis. It's terrorism. And the only reason it's happening is because Iran wants to be the disruptor in the Middle East. And they are quickly losing that power, arguably. I hope you're all ears, by the way, as I walk by these rows of some crop growing here. Leave a comment if you know what it is, if you can see what it is. If you can't see what it is, tell me. Maybe I'll tell you what it is. The beautiful crop is, if you can tell. If you know, you know. If you don't know, well, then you don't know. Maybe one day I'll tell you what it is. Or maybe one day you'll figure it out. It's a crop, so it will grow into something if you don't know what it is. So Israel is facing enemies that are basically terrorists. Why is Israel right now operating in Gaza the way it's operating in Gaza? And people are saying, oh, Israel's been starving the Gazan people. No, Israel has not been starving the Gazan people. Israel had a food blockade for 77 days, wouldn't allow aid to go into Gaza. Okay, Israel had a blockade for 11 weeks because it had decided, okay, we've given tons of aid to the people in Gaza, and Hamas is stealing it and stockpiling it, so they have plenty of it. And people say, oh, the people are going to die in Gaza in 48 hours. First of all, even the claim that was made by, I think, the World Health Organization or UNRWA or one of these groups that's just blabbing about how people are about to all die in Gaza because of starvation. They had to walk back that claim. They instead of saying, oh, 14,000 babies are going to die in the next 48 hours, this was 2 days ago, they had to walk back the claim and say, no, what we meant is 14,000 babies and young children may be at risk of malnutrition in the next year. You understand what a difference? Anyway, yeah, so this guy, Elias Rodriguez, who was shouting Free Palestine as he got arrested, dressed in a, looks like a dark colored suit with with a white dress shirt and sneakers. Uh, Obviously, some thought went into this, and this guy committed a sense act, but obviously thought about it. This wasn't a random coincidence that this guy accidentally shot this young couple who happened to be working for the Israeli embassy. Like, how would he even know that they're working for the Israeli embassy? Think about how messed up that is. He's not pro-Palestine. He's anti-Palestinian. Anybody who's supporting these terrorists oppressing Palestinian people, they're not pro-Palestinian. Whether you're a student at some college or university or just a different, random person that supports the Hamas or the other terrorist groups that oppress the Palestinian people, you're not pro-Palestinian. Pro-Palestinians are people who want the Palestinians to live in peace and security, and you want them to be free, and that means living in peace and security, right? And prosperity side by side with Israel. Not oppressed for their beliefs, not oppressed for who they are, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, their race, their gender, whatever it is. You realize that Hamas treats women like garbage, treats gays like garbage, like they're anti-gay, anti-woman, racist, misogynistic as hell. Not just anti-woman, but disgustingly misogynistic, obviously anti-Semitic. They hate Jews. It's in their charter. They want to kill all the Jews, right? And that's who they are. These people are not pro-Palestine. The people standing up to support Hamas are not pro-Palestine. If you're actually pro-Palestine, you should support Israel. Because what is Israel doing? Israel's trying to get rid of the terrorists so that the Palestinians can be free. If you don't understand that, there's something wrong with you. The only country in the world that's actively pro-Palestine more than any other country on earth is Israel. Israel gave the Palestinians Area A and Judea and Samaria and gave them partial control or joint control of Area B in Judea and Samaria and gave them all of Gaza. No strings attached. Here, just take it. Do the best you can with it. And we're going to leave you all of our infrastructure. We're going to leave you settlements full of beautiful homes, even synagogues that you don't have to destroy. You want to turn them into mosques? Turn them into mosques, okay? No, they had to destroy them. We're going to leave you greenhouses full of amazing things that you can immediately start growing food, enough to sustain your people. Did they do that? No, they immediately trashed the greenhouses, set them all on fire, took them apart for the copper piping. I'm not even joking. And they took them apart for the hydration tubes, the irrigation tubes to make into rockets. I'm not even joking. I wish I was. They're not. It's not a joke. Like when we say they literally dug up the sewage pipes to make them into rockets, they literally dug up the sewage pipe to make them into rockets. If you're digging up your sewage pipes to turn them into rockets, you've made bad choices. Especially when you're not being attacked. They were not being attacked in 2005 when they were ripping up the irrigation pipes already under the Fatah. That was before even the Hamas took over. And there was already Hamas in Gaza, but they hadn't taken over yet. They didn't just suddenly appear in 2006. No, Hamas was very active and doing very bad things in Gaza for a long time. That's where they were born. Let's not kid ourselves. They're from Gaza, right? They're the spawn of the Muslim Brotherhood, initiated in Gaza and the West Bank, but as they call it, the West Bank, right? Judea and Samaria. But no, the Hamas is a Gaza thing, very much as it is a Judea and Samaria thing. So anyway, yeah, so people who support these idiots are supporting the wrong side of history. The only side of history that's actually going to be the right side of history in this case is the side that supports actual freedom and peace and security and prosperity in the Middle East between Israelis and Arabs. Anybody who has these bloodlust dreams of we're going to kill all the Jews and destroy all of Israel, you're crazy. And how's that working out for you so far? And Israel is sick and tired of constantly being attacked by these people. We're done with that. We're not accepting that anymore. Sorry. You took the fight, you've attacked us, we're bringing the fight to you. If you don't like it, sorry, right? That's the Israeli attitude now. And about the two states. The fact is, Israelis, for decades, the vast majority were supportive of a two-state solution. Now, how can we say that we're pro-peace and pro-Palestine if we don't actually want to have a Palestinian state? Well, Jordan is Palestine. They could take over Palestine. Jordan, right? Palestine. It's the same thing. Jordan is Palestine. Remember, Jordan, before it was called Jordan, was called Transjordan, and before that, as part of the British Mandate. And what Palestinians these days call Palestine, which is all of Israel, but it's not, but it is to them. But what they call the West Bank and Gaza, right? Israelis and people who support Israel call the historical names of the land, which are Judea and Samaria and Gaza, because Jews are from Judea, it's their ancestral homeland, right? That was known as West Palestine, and east of the Jordan River was called East. And then the British, now Transjordan, no problem. And then the British said, actually, we're going to give them another 45% of what is remaining of what's West Palestine, and now we're just going to call it Palestine. We're going to give the Arabs 45% of that. So when you hear people say that the Israelis took 55% of Palestine and the Arabs only got 45%, is a lie. The Arabs, who at the time did not call themselves Palestinian any more than anyone else did, which is to say no one did, because no one, not Jews, not Arabs, actively called themselves Palestinian at the time. Okay, no one was referring. Did they have a passport that said British mandated Palestine on it? Yes, it said British mandated Palestine. Their nationality was not marked as Palestinian. Okay, but there was the Palestinian Symphony Orchestra. Yeah, and there was the Palestine Post. Yeah, and there was the Palestine Football Club. Yes, and none of those things represented state organizations. There was no state called Palestine. If you can tell me who the prime minister or the president or the king was of the state of Palestine, by all means, please leave a comment in the chat. You know you can't, because it never happened. May it happen someday? At this point, it's hard to say, but certainly the rulers in Jordan, which, by the way, has peace with Israel, so it would not be great for Jordan necessarily to be eliminated as a country. But Jordan's a much bigger piece of land than all of Judea and Samaria and Gaza. There really is no reason why the Jordanians could not at least divide their land in some way, considering that more than 70% of the people in Jordan are self-identifying as Palestinians. More than 70%. The remainder are the Bedou people who lived there before, and the Hashemites who invaded because they were given the land, right? They came and took over the land. Hashemites, by the way, are a family that came from Saudi Arabia, right? And they were told, go and take control of this land, and we'll give it to you as your own kingdom, the Hashemite kingdom of East Palestine, and then we'll call it Transjordan, and then we'll call it Jordan. And that's exactly what happened, right? The rulers of Jordan are from Saudi Arabia, and their clan that supports them, the Hashemites, are from Saudi Arabia. It's not a question. They came there in the last century. It's not like they were there for a very long time. We know all about them. And when the Palestinians who left Israel, the newly established state of Israel, when the Arabs who left the newly established state of Israel, when they went further than Judea and Samaria, they went east of the river Jordan for some reason, because they were told by the Arab leaders to leave. temporarily, right? While their armies would, kill all the Jews and destroy the new state, and then all the Arabs could come back and take all the things that the Jews left behind. That's like literally what they were saying. Well, when many of those Arabs left Judea and Samaria, a bunch of them went to Jordan. A lot of them, because it's the biggest border that Israel has. So, and it borders right along the parts of Judea and Samaria that are most directly accessible to them. So they went to Jordan and they began replicating a lot. And by the 1970s, when the PLO was very active and its Fedayeen and PLO fighters were actively training in Jordan, they began to be a real problem for the Jordanians because they were trying to forcefully take over Jordan, or certainly to divide it and have either a civil war that would eventually lead to the Hashemite downfall or whatever, right? The PLO was not friends with the Jordanians at the time. And Jordan, the king, in response to the violence of the Palestinian terrorists in Jordan, unleashed hell on them with his army and decimated them almost to the last man. And the very few that were left escaped with Yasser Arafat. They went to Lebanon, right? They drove through Syria and went to Lebanon. And there they set up their camp, etc. This isn't to be a long history lesson. I know it's kind of been a rant here, but the point is the Palestinians who went to Jordan replicated in such numbers that they very quickly became the overwhelming majority. And remember, they did not identify as Palestinians when they first went there. They came from West Palestine, which now calls itself Palestine, right? The areas of Palestine they call themselves Palestine. They call Palestine. They went to East Palestine, Transjordan. At the time, it was called Transjordan. That was the new name it had been assigned. And they identified as Arabs, just like the Transjordan people. They're no different because they're the same people. They're from the same bloody place. I mean, they live 50 kilometers down the road. They're not any different. They travel back and forth. Anyway, so yeah, I don't see any reason why Jordan cannot be divided and give a significant chunk of land to the people that call themselves Palestinians, as long as they're willing to accept living there in peace and security and prosperity, side by side with Jordan and Israel. But if they refuse to live in peace, and if Israel is not going to give them a two-state solution because they refuse to live in peace, well, probably not a good outcome for them. Meanwhile, Bitcoin hit an all-time high recently, and last I looked, it was, oh wow, it's gone up even higher. It's gone up to 111,868. No, so that is where it was. So 111,868. That was as the last 4-hour candle was closing in the last 15-minute period. Since then, it's just pulled back a little bit. It basically pulled back about 0.37%, the height of that last 15-minute candle or so. And is looking okay, although it's starting to turn down a little bit on the 15-minute. Don't be surprised to see a bit of a pullback here intraday, but overall on the day, it is still looking pretty good. 4-hour is looking a bit down. There are some indications looking a little bit to the downside, at least for a bit of a retest. Maybe back to the power mean ribbon on the 4-hour around 107.3. And remember, there's a mean reversion happening to Bitcoin. Currently, Bitcoin is in a mean reversion, despite the fact it's going up. Remember, mean reversions can happen up, down, or sideways. And at the moment, the RMLR that it's being reverting to is the 3012 RMLR, currently down at 105.744. So that'd be a $6,000 drop if it were to happen. Almost $6,000. which is a couple percent. You know, it sounds a lot. Wow, $6,000. It's a lot. Yes, it is a lot. But in terms of actual percentages, it's like 5%, not even, which is not a massive move, right? Like just yesterday, we saw Bitcoin pull back. Um, it had like a 2.3% move in the 4 hour candle that ended with the live stream, or thereabouts. And then the very next candle, it went up a little bit more to past 110,000 and pulled back all the way down below the beginning of that previous candle. So for it to drop 2%, 3%, 5% in a 4 hour candle or an 8 hour candle, it's entirely possible. Just saying, keep in mind. That doesn't mean it's going to, right, necessarily, because it can complete the mean reversion to the downside, or it can complete the mean reversion going sideways, or it can even complete the mean reversion going up, just at a lesser slope than the RMLR line. So the RMLR line would be rising like this, and or like this, and the price action will be rising like this, and eventually we'll run into it. I mean, it's a silly example, but you get what I'm saying, right? You have two objects rising at different grades. Eventually, they may run into each other. Okay. So yeah, that's that for now. I know mixing two topics in a video, it's a big no-no in YouTube land, but I don't care. All right, that's gonna do it for now. If you guys want to stay abreast of what I am talking about here, um, I do talk about current affairs and history and science and political science and all that stuff because I've been dealing with this topic for many, many years. Okay. And not like 5 or 10, but like decades, more than several decades. Okay. Since I was a little kid, I've been dealing with this topic. So, a very, very long time that I've been actively engaged in it. And yes, I was actively engaged in it as a very little kid and grew up dealing with this topic my whole life. But I also talk obviously about marketing, and I talk about crypto, and I talk about cultural stuff, and I talk about all kinds of stuff. If you are interested in watching my videos, then do the thing, where you like and comment and share and subscribe and all that. And if not, well, thanks anyway for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. All right. Peace.